Elizabeth Thompson's heart pounded against the stiff hospital mattress, her fingers trembling around the edges of a vibrant, unexpected bouquet. She was days away from giving birth, but a sudden twist jolted her heart more than any labor pain ever could. On the card attached to those mysterious flowers was a name she never wanted to hear her husband's mistress. With each syllable, she read out loud. The hush that fell across the sterile hospital room felt more suffocating than any tension she'd experienced. Little did she realize that unassuming card would unravel the darkest secrets of their glittering life of wealth. Elizabeth Thompson was known around Boston for her elegant grace, well-tailored designer dresses, and magnetic presence at all the city's most exclusive events. She was not just another socialite clinging to wealth. She possessed a genuine warmth that shone through every red carpet appearance. 27 years old, she had become the adored wife of millionaire entrepreneur Michael Thompson, founder and CEO of Thompson Advanced Logistics, a firm whose shipping innovations had made headlines in the Wall Street Journal. Elizabeth had grown up in a more modest part of the city, daughter of an elementary school teacher and a nurse. Fate led her to meet Michael at a charity gala 7 years ago when she served hors d'oeuvres to help raise money for underprivileged kids. Their eyes locked, an instant spark lit between them, and within months, her life transformed. A whirlwind romance of overseas dinners, yacht parties, and lavish gifts soon concluded, with Michael dropping to one knee on the veranda of a private villa overlooking Lake Como. From the outside, she had it all: a devoted, successful husband, a stunning manor in the suburbs with sprawling gardens, and now a precious baby on the way. She was 9 months pregnant, carefully monitored by the best obstetricians at St. Christopher's Medical Center. Yet behind the glamorous image of the Thompson name, shadows lurked. Whispers had circulated among the staff at Michael's office building and in the upper echelons of Boston's social circles that the charismatic CEO did not keep to his marital vows. A rumored mistress, a suspicious phone number on his call logs, unexplained business trips extended by days. Elizabeth tried to maintain composure through the rumors. She told herself they were all malicious gossip people targeted the wealthy for scandal. She had always believed in their love story. Michael, after all, declared his commitment daily, showering her with affection. She'd known him to be a risk-taker in business, not in love. Still, that kernel of doubt gnawed at her, especially on nights when he came home late, smelling of a perfume that certainly wasn't hers. It was one such evening that Elizabeth first sensed that life as she knew it might be disintegrating. He returned after midnight, collar askew, tie missing. Before she could press him for answers, he claimed he had to answer some urgent calls. The next morning, during a routine checkup at the OB/GYN's office, Elizabeth overheard Michael quietly talking on his phone. The tension in his tone made her wonder, but he brushed it off as a client crisis. Nothing prepared her for the storm that would break inside that white-walled hospital room just days before her due date. In the swirl of intravenous drips and fetal heart monitors, a flamboyant florist cart arrived carrying the seeds of betrayal. Elizabeth was resting against fluffy pillows, the bright morning sun filtering through the big windows, watching gentle dust motes float in the hospital air. At 39 weeks pregnant, her doctor insisted on hospital observation because of earlier complications. Her blood pressure had spiked, and there was slight concern for preeclampsia. She had become used to the hum of machines, the occasional squeak of rubber soles from the nurses scurrying about. In her left hand, she held her phone, reading messages from her best friend, Sarah Davenport, who had flown in from Chicago to be near her during the final days of pregnancy. Suddenly, the door swung open. A nurse, wide-eyed, steered a large display of pink roses, white lilies, and delicate orchids into the room. The flowers practically swallowed the small metal cart they were perched on. Elizabeth's breath caught in her throat. Usually Michael was the type to gift her elaborate blooms. Her heart fluttered with naive anticipation. Maybe Michael was sending an apology for his recent aloof behavior. The nurse politely said, "Delivery for Mrs. Thompson," and placed the heavy bouquet on the small table next to her bed. Elizabeth noticed a pink envelope nestled among the stems with her name, Elizabeth, in ornate handwriting. She glanced at the nurse, grateful, but also perplexed. Michael never used pink envelopes, and his handwriting was bolder, more angular. Not wanting to appear suspicious, she returned a bright smile before the nurse left, shutting the door gently behind her. When Elizabeth opened the envelope, her stomach tightened. The card read, "My dear Elizabeth, I know you're about to become a mother soon, and I wanted to extend my congratulations. This is a reminder that life and love aren't always what they seem." Signed, Carla Donahue. In one corner, in smaller print, it said, "P.S. I wonder if Michael's told you about us." Elizabeth's hands trembled. Her vision blurred. The name struck her like a thunderbolt. Carla Donahue. She'd overheard Michael whisper that name once during a phone call. He had shrugged it off, claiming it was a new assistant, or possibly a client he was looking to impress. Now, an uneasy hush settled over the room, as she found it difficult to breathe. The sweet fragrance of roses was suddenly suffocating. She reached for the bedrail and carefully slid her legs to the side, feeling her baby move in protest at her tension. 1,000 questions crammed into her head. Why would a mistress send me flowers? What does she mean by, "I wonder if Michael's told you about us"? Has Michael truly betrayed me? She prayed it was all a sick joke from a bored social rival. Yet the presence of that card, undeniably real, left her reeling. She hated the sense of being watched, manipulated, or pitied. She reread the lines, searching for clues. Then she realized the card's final line, "I wonder if Michael's told you about us," was so direct, as if Carla wanted to force her hand, rub salt in the wound, make it impossible for Michael to wiggle out of the allegations. Elizabeth's blood pounded in her ears. Within minutes, Sarah burst into the hospital room, phone and coffee in hand. She stopped mid-step, noticing Elizabeth, pale and startled. "Liz, oh my God, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Elizabeth could barely muster words. She handed the card to her friend, who read it carefully, her eyes widening. "Who the hell is Carla Donahue?" Sarah demanded the protective best friend, instinct flaring. "Do we know her?" Elizabeth shook her head, tears welling. "I've heard her name before. Remember those rumors about Michael and some mistress at the office?" She gulped, gesturing to the flowers. "It's her, Sarah. It's true. Michael's lied to me." Sarah carefully placed a reassuring hand on Elizabeth's shoulder, but the tears spilling down Elizabeth's cheeks were unstoppable. Deep down, she dreaded the confrontation with Michael. But that confrontation was now inevitable. Carla had forced it. Michael arrived shortly after, an anxious look on his face. He had come bearing a standard daddy-to-be balloon and a takeout bag from their favorite lunch spot downtown. He paused when he saw the enormous bouquet dominating the bedside table. Elizabeth watched him glance at the card in Sarah's hand, his expression shifting from confusion to realization within seconds. "Who sent these?" he asked, voice quavering slightly. Elizabeth locked her gaze on him. The card held up like damning evidence in a courtroom. "Carla Donahue," she replied, her voice cold with heartbreak. "Does that name ring a bell?" Michael, Sarah stepped out politely, giving them space. She whispered something like, "I'll be outside if you need me," but Elizabeth barely registered it. Michael's jaw tightened. "Liz, I can explain." Her stomach churned a swirl of heartbreak and anger. She braced herself, wanting to keep calm for the baby's sake, but the floodgates opened. "Explain?" she echoed, voice trembling. "Explain why a woman I've never met, who claims to be involved with you, is sending me flowers in the hospital with cryptic messages." Michael stepped closer, but Elizabeth leaned away, pressing her back into the pillows. He exhaled heavily, as if gathering the strength for a confession. "Carla and I had a short affair a couple of months ago," he began. "It was a mistake. I ended it as soon as I realized how wrong it was. It meant nothing, I swear. Clearly it meant something to her." Elizabeth interjected, hot tears tracing her cheeks. "She's mocking me with these flowers, Michael. She wants me to know everything. Why now, a few days before I give birth? This is despicable." He ran his hand through his perfectly styled hair, suddenly looking like a child cornered by stern parents. "I guess she wants to destroy what we have. I tried to cut ties, but she threatened to tell you." He paused, his voice cracking. "I swear, I didn't want to hurt you, Liz." Pain radiated through Elizabeth's chest. Her world, carefully built on trust and devotion, was crashing. "So you lied to me for months, letting me carry our child while you had an affair." She swallowed the lump in her throat. "I need you to leave, now," he protested. "Liz, don't." She glared, wiping tears from her eyes. "If you stay here, I'll end up in worse condition. My blood pressure will spike even more. I can't do this right now. Please go." Michael hesitated, picking up his jacket. His lips trembled as though he wanted to say something that would fix it all. But there was no easy fix. After another beat, he nodded, whispered, "I'm sorry," and walked out of the room. Alone with the mountain of flowers, Elizabeth pressed a hand to her stomach, feeling the baby kick. She tried to stifle a sob, but it turned into a trembling cry that echoed through the hospital corridor. Elizabeth spent that afternoon sliding between heartbreak and numbness. She told the nurses she was just hormonal to explain her teary face, but inside she was fracturing under the weight of betrayal. Over the next hour, she placed a call to her mother, who lived in Vermont. Her mother's gentle voice tried to reassure her. "Come home if you need to. We'll welcome you any time. Don't worry about the money or anything else. Just take care of yourself and that baby." She also phoned an old confidant, John Maxwell, a close family friend who had once worked with Michael. John had left Thompson Advanced Logistics a year ago to start his own consulting firm, rumored to be unhappy with Michael's leadership style. Elizabeth remembered him as a kind man who gave fatherly advice, the one who'd guided Michael in his early startup days. She told him about Carla's bouquet and how devastated she was. John cleared his throat on the other line. "I suspected something like this was happening. Carla is a junior manager, but everyone in the company whispered that she was too close to Michael. I couldn't confirm anything, so I didn't want to upset you with baseless speculation." He sighed. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way, Liz." Elizabeth felt relief, mingled with a creeping dread. If John had suspected something, how many other people knew? The idea that the staff at Michael's headquarters knew more about her marriage than she did cut deep. She recalled the pitying glances from his personal assistants, the hush that fell whenever she stopped by. A wave of humiliation flooded her cheeks. "What should I do now?" she asked, her voice trembling over the phone. "I'm due to give birth at any moment. I don't want my baby to come into a broken family, John." He paused. "I can't tell you what to do, but you need support. Emotional, legal, everything. If Michael truly wants to fix this, he'll have to step up." If you want to protect yourself, speak to an attorney. Make decisions that are best for you and your baby. Don't let your emotions or Michael's pleas overshadow your instincts. Elizabeth ended the call, feeling a grim sense of resolve. She dialed a family lawyer recommended by Sarah. Her fingers shook with every ring. When the lawyer, Ms. Anita Cheng, answered Elizabeth's carefully rehearsed words, spilled out, "I've just discovered my husband has a mistress. I'm about to give birth. I need to know my options." While Elizabeth wrestled with heartbreak in her hospital bed, Carla Donahue basked in the aftermath of her carefully orchestrated scheme. From her vantage point, in a chic downtown condominium, she watched the city lights shimmer across the Charles River. She knew the flowers had been delivered because her contact at the floral shop sent her a confirmation text. She could almost taste the scandal swirling in the Thompson household. She expected Michael to come begging soon, or at least to lash out, but she was prepared. Carla was not the demure personal assistant the world assumed. She had grown up under modest means, clawing her way up the corporate ladder with sheer ambition and cunning. Meeting Michael at an industry conference set her sights on his attention, which she eventually secured through late-night work sessions, flirty phone calls, and carefully timed compliments. She'd reeled him in, and for a time Carla genuinely believed Michael might leave his wife. But as the months wore on, it became clear he valued his image more than he valued her. So Carla took matters into her own hands. She wanted to watch Michael squirm, to realize that betraying her was dangerous. Sending flowers to Elizabeth was only the first step in Carla's twisted plan. She also possessed a trove of evidence, texts, photos, voice messages, enough to make any court settlement or media expose sizzle. Unbeknownst to Carla, though, she had rattled a hornet's nest. Because Michael Thompson was not just a wealthy CEO, he had powerful political ties, influential friends, and a knack for damage control that had allowed him to bury many controversies. This time, however, Carla aimed to wound him where it hurt the most in his private life, on the brink of fatherhood. The following day, Michael visited Elizabeth again. He found her sitting up in bed, hair brushed neatly, eyes red from crying but resolute. A nurse had just taken her blood pressure, muttering that stress was the last thing Elizabeth needed in her condition. Michael approached slowly, wearing what looked like a forced smile. "Liz, I've arranged for a private postpartum suite, just so you have all the comfort you need when the baby arrives." She looked at him sharply. "That's generous of you, but it doesn't solve anything." He lowered himself into the chair by her bedside. "I've told Carla I won't be intimidated. She's toxic, Liz. She wants to break us up. I ended the affair months ago. I regret everything." Elizabeth let out a humorless laugh. "I imagine you do regret it now that you're cornered. But what about me? Michael, I'm the one carrying our child, left in the dark until your mistress decided to blow up our marriage." He inched closer, lowering his voice. "I'll do anything to fix this. Name it. Counseling, separate living arrangements for a while, if that's what you need. I don't want to lose you." A bitter pang shot through Elizabeth. She remembered how her father had betrayed her mother years ago. His apologies had been frequent, but his loyalty ephemeral. It took her mother 5 years to finalize their divorce, and the emotional scars remained. Elizabeth had sworn never to let that happen to her own marriage, and yet here she was faced with the same brand of heartbreak. "This isn't about me wanting to punish you," she whispered, tears threatening again. "I need you to understand the depth of this betrayal. You cheated on me while I was pregnant, carrying your child. I can't just snap my fingers and trust you again." Michael nodded silent. Elizabeth sensed his shame. For a moment, She remembered the sweet, earnest young man she first fell in love with, the man who typed her poetry on old typewriters, who taught her to waltz under the stars. That memory twisted a knife in her heart. Could that version of Michael still exist? Reluctantly, she allowed him to stay as the doctors came in to check the baby's heartbeat. Michael watched the ultrasound monitor with a mixture of awe and guilt. Their child's strong heartbeat seemed to echo in the room, a reminder that for the baby's sake, they might attempt a fragile truce, at least for now. Meanwhile, news of Carla's brazen gesture trickled through the ranks at Thompson Advanced Logistics. Company gossip soared. Employees whispered about the boss's scandal, carefully shutting up when Michael entered the corridor. Even the board of directors, led by CFO Gloria Pierce and senior advisor John Maxwell, were on high alert. John had kept his conversation with Elizabeth confidential, but word of the Mistress fiasco inevitably circulated. The entire environment bristled with tension. Gloria Pierce, a stern and methodical woman in her 50s, requested an urgent meeting with Michael. Despite his personal crisis, Michael had to attend. In the boardroom, the thick mahogany table gleamed under fluorescent lights, and the air was charged with unspoken concern. Gloria addressed him directly. "Michael, I'll be frank. We have reason to believe your personal life is about to become public in a damaging way. Carla Donahue is rumored to be very disgruntled, and she's hinted at leaking sensitive information about the company." Michael's face darkened. "I'm handling it." Carla signed an NDA upon her promotion. Gloria exchanged glances with John Maxwell, who sat quietly, arms folded. Non-disclosure agreements aren't bulletproof against personal vendettas, especially if she frames her story as a Me Too scenario or calls it workplace harassment. We must protect the company from any scandal that jeopardizes shareholder interests. John's steady gaze fell on Michael. "We want to ensure a stable environment for our investors, staff, and clients. If Carla leaks texts or claims you exploited your power as CEO, we could face intense media scrutiny, which can drag down our brand." Michael massaged his temples. "I'll talk to Carla. I'll pay her off if I must. It's cheaper than a lawsuit." Gloria pressed her lips together, unimpressed. "We can't endorse hush money. It sets a dangerous precedent. We need you to personally ensure this is handled discreetly. Otherwise, the board may consider stronger measures, like requesting your temporary resignation or stepping down as CEO." A heavy silence fell. Michael realized this scandal threatened not just his marriage, but everything he'd built. He nodded gravely. "Give me time. I'll fix this. I'll keep the board updated." Yet behind his confident words, Michael's mind spun. He was losing control of his wife, his business, his reputation. Carla's name now haunted him day and night. Elizabeth woke up to mild contractions, the first signs that labor might be approaching. The doctors administered medication to manage her blood pressure, but the constant stress of Carla's revelations still loomed. Sarah suggested that maybe Elizabeth needed a break from the intense environment, some fresh air, a short walk. However, Elizabeth's doctor insisted she remain in the room for close monitoring. Amid the beeping monitors and swirling anxiety, Carla Donahue herself strode through the hospital corridors. She wore a tailored black dress, stiletto heels clicking on the polished floor. She had cunningly found out Elizabeth's room number from an acquaintance in hospital administration. After all, it's amazing what a healthy bribe can accomplish. When Carla pushed open the door to Elizabeth's private suite, a stunned hush fell. Elizabeth was sitting up, wincing at a contraction, while Michael stood by her side. Carla's sudden presence sent a chill through the room. Michael froze, eyes blazing with anger. Elizabeth's pulse spiked. "What are you doing here?" Michael demanded, stepping forward as if to block Carla's path to Elizabeth. Carla's lips curved into a mocking smile. "I came to see how the mother-to-be is doing. I thought it was only fair given all the excitement." Elizabeth felt raw fury surge through her. "You have a lot of nerve showing up here uninvited." Carla shifted her weight, her icy stare, never leaving Elizabeth. "Call it closure. I just wanted to see your face, dear Elizabeth, to make sure you got my flowers." "I trust you read the card aloud?" Michael seethed. "That's enough, Carla. You've caused enough damage." He glanced anxiously at Elizabeth, who looked close to tears. "She's under a lot of stress. You need to leave." Carla's eyes sparkled with triumph, as though she thrived on the chaos. "Stress isn't good for the baby," she remarked casually, adjusting the strap of her handbag. "But you should have thought of that when you jumped into my bed, Michael." Elizabeth grimaced, a fresh contraction, twisting her abdomen. "Please, just leave," she whispered through clenched teeth. Carla began to turn away, then paused, brandishing her phone. "I have evidence that could ruin you, Michael. And you, Elizabeth, should know the full extent of what happened. If you're going to make decisions for your child's future, you deserve every detail. And I'm more than willing to share, unless Michael steps up with a compelling reason for me to remain silent." With that, she spun on her heel and walked out, leaving behind a tension so thick it stifled the air. Elizabeth sank back onto the pillows, tears streaming anew. Michael's face was ashen, his mind obviously racing. He reached for Elizabeth's hand, but she turned away, her heart hammered by betrayal, fear, and the ominous threat Carla had just laid out. By evening, Elizabeth's contractions became more frequent. Sarah arrived at the hospital with a small overnight bag and comforting words. Nurses flitted in to check dilation. The time for the baby's arrival was drawing nearer, but the swirl of heartbreak and turmoil overshadowed what should have been a joyful moment. Michael lingered in the hallway, speaking hurriedly into his phone. Elizabeth could sense his desperation as he tried to call Carla, presumably to beg for mercy. She overheard snippets of his pleas. "Don't do this. I'll arrange a settlement. Just leave Elizabeth out of it. This isn't about you and me anymore." But Carla was beyond reason. Her grand plan was unfolding exactly as she wanted, and she craved a bigger payoff. The next morning, at 5 a.m., Elizabeth's water broke. Amid the chaos, Michael rushed to her side, her anger toward him overshadowed by the physical ordeal of childbirth. Nurses brought in extra pillows, the obstetrician arrived, and the overhead lights shone starkly on the sweat beading Elizabeth's brow. The baby's heart rate fluttered on the monitor, and Elizabeth endured wave after wave of contractions. It was an agonizing, intense experience. Yet in the throes of labor, Elizabeth found a small measure of solace, focusing solely on the child inside her. She was determined to bring this life into the world safely, no matter the heartbreak swirling around them. After 12 grueling hours, tears of pain turned to tears of joy as Elizabeth finally heard the baby's first cries. A nurse placed the wriggling, precious newborn into Elizabeth's trembling arms. A boy, pink wailing, utterly helpless. Michael stood by, his eyes flooded with emotion, though overshadowed by guilt. In that moment, for just a few fragile seconds, Elizabeth forgot Carla, forgot the betrayal, and gazed upon her baby boy with pure love. Elizabeth named the baby Andrew. She nursed him gently, the curve of his tiny hand wrapped around her finger. Michael tried to approach, murmuring words of gratitude and admiration for her strength. But the raw tension between them still lingered even amidst the wonder of new parenthood. Sarah and Elizabeth's mother came in, showering the newborn with coos and kisses. Elizabeth's mother briefly acknowledged Michael with a curt nod, but gave her daughter a look that said, "We'll talk later." Elizabeth knew that her mother was disappointed by Michael's affair and protective of her daughter's well-being. By the second day, Elizabeth felt slightly stronger, though still drained from labor. She was drifting off to a restless sleep when her phone buzzed. She checked it, heart plummeting at the name on the screen, Carla Donahue. Some part of her wanted to ignore it, but her fingers moved almost involuntarily, tapping the message open. "Congratulations on the baby, Elizabeth. I'm sure he's beautiful. If you'd like to know the full story of me and Michael, do call me. Or maybe I should just send you screenshots. Cheers." A flare of anger coursed through Elizabeth, and she tossed the phone onto the bed. That was all it took for her blood pressure to spike again. The nurse frowned over the vitals, reminding Elizabeth to stay calm. But how could Elizabeth remain calm when Carla was clearly determined to keep her wounds fresh, determined to keep the drama alive? And perhaps, in the darkest corner of her mind, Elizabeth did wonder about the specifics, all the secrecy, the possible length of the affair. The gifts, the hotels, the elaborate lies, knowing the full truth, might be the only way to make an informed decision about her marriage. That evening, Michael leaned against the edge of Elizabeth's bed, watching baby Andrew slumber in the bassinet. Elizabeth feigned sleep, uncertain if she was ready to speak. But Michael, perhaps sensing her wakefulness, started talking in a subdued tone. "I should have told you everything from the start. I was wrong to hide it, hoping it would blow over. I don't want Carla controlling our lives." Elizabeth opened her eyes and shifted to face him, arms aching from supporting the newborn earlier. "What exactly is everything?" she asked. "I need the truth. Did you love her?" He shook his head vehemently. "No, it was never about love. I was stressed with the new product launches, dealing with board pressure, and I stupidly fell into Carla's flirtations. It happened a handful of times, never more. I ended it before you even suspected anything. But Carla, she's manipulative. She threatened to ruin me, to ruin us if I didn't keep seeing her or pay her. I hoped ignoring her would solve it." Elizabeth's voice trembled. "You brought her into our marriage, our home, indirectly. She's turned our baby's birth into a nightmare of scandal." She wiped a stray tear. "I'm not sure if I can forgive you for that. You broke my heart." Michael lowered his gaze, tears slipping down his cheeks. "I know I did, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it right if you'll let me. We can get a legal agreement, a post-nuptial, if that makes you feel safer. Please, just give me a chance." A war raged inside Elizabeth. She loved him, the father of her child, but the betrayal was too raw. "I need time," she whispered. He nodded, as if accepting a temporary defeat. "Take all the time you need," he said gently. "I'm not going anywhere." On the fourth day after Andrew's birth, Elizabeth was set to be discharged. A friend of the family, Dr. Margaret Holcomb, came to see the baby. Dr. Holcomb was also Elizabeth's longtime mentor, someone who'd nurtured her spirit from a young age, encouraging her to pursue philanthropic work alongside Michael. She exuded a wise, comforting aura. With salt and pepper hair pinned neatly in a bun, Elizabeth confided in her about Carla's card and the subsequent drama. Dr. Holcomb sighed, pulling up a chair. "Sometimes the thing that hurts us the most is better brought into the light than kept in the dark. That card you read, and the fact you read it out loud to Michael, forced him to confront his actions. The truth is painful, but it's necessary. The question is, what comes next?" My dear, tears welled in Elizabeth's eyes. "I'm not sure. This child is my priority. I can't let Carla keep blackmailing us or tormenting me." My lawyer, Ms. Cheng, is looking into how to protect us from Carla's threats. Dr. Holcomb placed a gentle hand on Elizabeth's arm. Lean on your support system. Don't let pride or fear isolate you. And remember, Andrew deserves parents who strive for peace, whether together or apart. Stepping back into the Thompson mansion felt surreal. The baby in Elizabeth's arms cooed softly, oblivious to the tension swirling in the lavish foyer. Michael led the way, turning on lights as if trying to brighten the heavy mood. The staff offered their congratulations in hushed tones. Elizabeth forced polite smiles, but everyone sensed the shift in the household. That evening, in the grand living room, where tall windows overlooked the carefully manicured gardens, Elizabeth rocked Andrew to sleep. She stared at the mesmerizing flicker of the fireplace, remembering happier times, holiday gatherings, dinner parties, lazy Sunday afternoons with Michael. This home, once a fortress of love, felt tainted now. Michael quietly approached, setting a warm blanket around them. I arranged for extra security, he said softly. No one gets in unless we approve. I'll do anything to protect you and Andrew from Carla's intrusion. Elizabeth glanced up, eyes heavy with exhaustion. I appreciate it, she said, meaning it genuinely. But you have to realize that security cameras won't protect me from heartbreak or from the possibility of more secrets. Michael bowed his head. I know. I want to earn back your trust. She nodded slowly, uncertain how or when that might happen. I'm meeting with Ms. Cheng tomorrow to discuss the legal side of things. I need to protect Andrew's future, no matter what. His face reflected a flicker of fear at the prospect of legal steps, but he didn't protest. I'll cooperate. Anything you need. In a glass-walled conference room at Cheng & Associates, Elizabeth sat across from Anita Cheng, a poised attorney specializing in family law for high-net-worth individuals. The lawyer reviewed the thick file in front of her financial documents, property titles, prenuptial agreements, and the details Elizabeth had shared about Carla. Ms. Cheng began removing her reading glasses. First, I'm sorry you're going through this. Let's lay out some options. If you choose to pursue divorce, we can negotiate for child support, alimony, and property division. Michael has significant assets. If you want to remain married, we can draft a post-nuptial that secures your financial stability and ensures fidelity clauses. It's not always romantic, but in these circumstances, it can protect you. Elizabeth fiddled with the pen on the table, baby Andrew sleeping in a stroller nearby. I don't know if I want a divorce. At least not yet. I need to see if he's truly remorseful, if we can salvage the marriage for our son's sake. Ms. Cheng nodded. In that case, we can prepare a strong post-nuptial. Also, regarding Carla, she's making veiled threats of revealing private information. Have you or Michael documented any of her messages? Elizabeth displayed her phone, scrolling through a string of texts and voice messages from Carla. Each was more caustic than the last, mentions of hush-money allusions to corporate secrets and snide remarks about Michael's unfaithful nature. Ms. Cheng's expression hardened. She's extorting you. We can consider a restraining order based on harassment. However, if she releases damaging information about Michael or the company, be prepared for a media storm. Are you emotionally ready to handle that? A shiver ran down Elizabeth's spine. She glanced at Andrew, sleeping so peacefully oblivious to the adult chaos. I'll do whatever it takes to protect Andrew, she said firmly. If Carla pushes further, we'll respond. The attorney smiled gently. That's the spirit. You have more power than you realize. Night fell over the Thompson mansion, and Elizabeth found herself pacing the nursery, gently bouncing Andrew in her arms. The baby's soft whimpers tugged at her heart. She sang a lullaby her mother once sang to her. The verses spoke of safety and warmth, a bittersweet longing for a family unspoiled by betrayal. Every time she looked at Andrew's eyes, so curious about this new world, she vowed to make sure he felt loved and secure. But she also wrestled with the knowledge that Michael's betrayal could overshadow his earliest memories if conflict and scandal raged on. Michael peeked into the nursery. "Need any help?" he asked softly, clearly, desperate to show his devotion. Elizabeth hesitated, then nodded. He just finished feeding, but he's still a bit fussy. Michael took Andrew in his arms. Elizabeth watched as father and son bonded, noticing how gently Michael cradled the baby, how softly he cooed, how Andrew's tiny fingers curled around Michael's. Despite everything in that moment, they looked like a sweet, loving family. Elizabeth felt tears threatening, once more tears for what they had, tears for what they might lose. Carla Donahue was not one to fade quietly. She had left messages on Michael's voicemail. "I'm sure your precious wife knows more now, but does she know you promised me a future, that you swore I was the one who truly excited you? Well, I'll make sure she does." She toyed with the idea of mailing a flash drive directly to Elizabeth with her intimate videos and photos, but her attorney advised caution. If she stepped too far into revenge porn territory, she could face legal consequences. Instead, Carla aimed for a more cunning approach. She leaked rumors to a local gossip blog, Boston Confidential. She insinuated that a powerful CEO was paying hush money to silence a pregnant mistress. The piece hit the internet, fueling speculation. Names weren't mentioned, but the details matched Michael's profile closely enough that industry insiders quickly made the connection. Social media lit up with theories, calling the CEO Mr. X, ridiculing him for cheating on his pregnant wife. A scandal was forming. When Mr. X rumors reached the Thompson Advanced Logistics Board of Directors, Gloria Pierce promptly summoned Michael to an emergency session. Cameras flashed outside corporate headquarters as reporters sniffed around the rumor. Michael scowled, ignoring their shouted questions, slipping into the building under guard. Gloria wasted no time. "Michael, are these rumors about you and a mistress going to be confirmed soon? Because if so, the stock might tank, and the board will be forced to take action." Michael exhaled, his eyes dark with fatigue. "I'm managing it. We have a PR statement ready if the rumors escalate. Carla's behind it. I'll pay for a settlement if needed." John Maxwell, seated at the table, folded his arms. "This is bigger than hush money. Public perception matters. Our clients rely on trust. If the tabloids get wind that you're a philanderer paying off ex-lovers, it casts doubt on your integrity in business." Michael pounded a fist on the table. "I made a mistake. I'll fix it. You have my word." In the corner, Gloria rubbed her temples. "Your word is wearing thin, Michael. Keep your personal life under control, or the board will consider your removal. We're not going to watch the company sink over your affair." The ultimatum weighed heavy. Michael felt the walls closing in. He left the boardroom, determined to salvage his reputation by any means necessary. Everything came to a head 2 weeks after Andrew's birth. Elizabeth was physically healing, though emotionally still raw. Michael's apologies continued, along with frantic damage control at his office. Carla's leaks to the press escalated, inching closer to naming Michael outright. One afternoon, while Elizabeth and Sarah watched Andrew doze in the living room, the phone rang. It was Carla. Elizabeth stared at the screen, anxiety climbing. "Should I answer?" she asked Sarah, who shrugged nervously. Elizabeth inhaled shakily and picked up. Carla's voice was sugary sweet. Elizabeth, darling, I'd love to talk, woman to woman. We could meet at the cafe near your estate, La Petite Rose. I'm sure you know it. I have something you might want to see. Elizabeth closed her eyes. She wanted nothing more than to hang up, but a strange compulsion propelled her. Fine. 4 p.m. 1 hour. Sarah offered to come along, but Elizabeth insisted on going alone, determined to face Carla. And so an hour later, she found herself sitting in a cozy corner of the upscale cafe. Andrew left safely at home with Sarah and a nanny. Carla arrived looking polished in a cream-colored blazer, dark hair twisted into a chic chignon. They regarded each other with silent animosity. Carla's lips curled into a faint smile as she slid a manila envelope across the small table. What's inside this envelope could be catastrophic for your husband's career. Photos, texts, recordings of him and me, but I'm offering you the chance to see them first. Elizabeth's throat felt tight. She opened the flap, glimpsing damning images of Michael in a hotel suite, proof that he'd spent nights with Carla. Her stomach lurched. Why show me this now? Carla leaned forward. To prove I'm not bluffing. I could go to the media, to the tabloids, or I could vanish quietly with a hefty settlement. Think about it, Elizabeth. You protect Michael, your estate, and your precious baby's future from this scandal. All I need is... Carla paused, letting the tension simmer. $5 million. Elizabeth recoiled. $5 million, Carla smirked, swirling her latte. Your husband's worth hundreds of millions. Don't play naive. $5 million is pocket change for him. Surely that's worth preserving the Thompson image and your child's father from public disgrace. Elizabeth's heart hammered. She refused to let Carla see her panic. And if we refuse, Carla's voice turned icy. Then every major news outlet gets these. Michael's brand goes up in flames, and your baby's father becomes the laughingstock of the business world. Elizabeth's mind raced. Was she truly expected to pay off this woman who had so callously ruined her life? A wave of fury rose, overshadowed by a desperate protective instinct. I'll talk to my lawyer. Don't contact me again, Elizabeth said, standing abruptly. Carla caught her arm. Just so you know, if you decide to slip that envelope to the authorities, I've kept digital backups. You'll only make things worse for yourself. Tick-tock, Elizabeth. Elizabeth yanked her arm free, chest tightening with anger and revulsion. Without another word, she left the cafe, ignoring Carla's smug stare. That evening, Elizabeth revealed Carla's ultimatum to Michael and Ms. Cheng on a speakerphone call. Michael turned pale. $5 million? She can't be serious. Ms. Cheng's voice crackled. She could be, and she's documented the affair thoroughly. If she makes it public, your credibility's shot. If we sue her for extortion, it drags out in court, and the evidence might be aired publicly. She's put you in a bind. Elizabeth stepped forward, setting Andrew's pacifier down. I say we let her do her worst. Why keep living in fear of her threats? You made a mistake, Michael, but should we really pay millions to hide it? Michael clenched his jaw, guilt written all over his face. If the board finds out how deep this goes, they might remove me. The scandal would overshadow everything. Our stocks could crash. I'd lose control of the company. We'd be consumed in a media circus. That's not good for you or Andrew either. Elizabeth sighed, eyes filling with tears. She hated that Carla had so much power over them. She glanced at her newborn, who fussed softly in the crib as though sensing the tension. A single tear rolled down her cheek. She had to decide, risk a massive, humiliating scandal or hand over hush money to the woman who had destroyed her peace. Ms. Cheng tried to remain neutral. Legally, you can gather evidence of extortion if you want to press charges, but it's risky. Carla's no amateur. If you pay her, you'll want an airtight settlement agreement with a non-disclosure clause. Michael looked at Elizabeth, his voice trembling. "What do you think we should do, Liz?" She stared back, the rage and pain inside her fueling her words. "I can't decide for you. It's your affair, your disgrace. But if you do pay her, I'm not letting it go without serious conditions. We'll sign that post-nuptial, you'll give me full oversight of the finances, and we decide how we move forward." He nodded solemnly, tears threatening. "I'll do it. Whatever you need." Within a week, Ms. Cheng and Carla's lawyer hammered out a settlement agreement. Carla would receive $5 million in exchange for surrendering all evidence and signing a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement. If she ever leaked or hinted at the affair again, she'd face crushing financial penalties. Michael signed the deal with trembling hands. Carla signed with a triumphant gleam in her eye. In parallel, Elizabeth and Michael executed a post-nuptial arrangement, granting Elizabeth significant leverage in their marriage. If Michael strayed again, the financial fallout would be devastating to him. He pledged the family home solely in her name, set up a trust fund for Andrew that Elizabeth controlled, and added stringent clauses guaranteeing her security. Elizabeth stared at Michael's signature, feeling a hollow triumph. She was protecting herself, but the emotional damage was already done. When Carla left the downtown law office with the check in her purse, she paused in the hallway outside the building. A strange pang of melancholy hit her. She had won a fortune, but her victory felt empty. She realized she would never be part of Michael's shining world, never experience the love she had once hoped for. All that remained was money, a fleeting satisfaction. She wiped a tear of regret, anger, or relief, she wasn't sure, and vanished into a waiting car. For Elizabeth, the hush money settlement felt like swallowing poison. She hated that Michael's vow of loyalty was tainted by a massive payout to silence his affair. She resented Carla for the trauma. She resented Michael for his betrayal. She resented the entire situation. Yet she also clung to a kernel of hope that maybe, just maybe, they could rebuild. For Andrew's sake, Michael walked on eggshells around her. He showered her with gifts, apologized constantly, and spent all his free time at home devoting himself to fatherhood. He relinquished control of finances per the post-nuptial agreement. Elizabeth saw him try, but the spark between them was fractured, and trust felt like a distant dream. One night, while feeding Andrew, Elizabeth stared at the swirling darkness beyond the nursery window. She realized she needed help beyond legal or financial measures. She needed emotional healing. So she called a reputable marriage counselor, Dr. Elaine Griffin, and scheduled sessions for them. Michael readily agreed. Inside Dr. Griffin's softly lit office, Elizabeth and Michael faced each other on plush chairs. Andrew stayed at home with a nanny while they tried to dissect the ruins of their relationship. Michael, wringing his hands, confessed his insecurities, the fear of fatherhood, the massive pressures from the board, the allure of an illicit fling that offered an escape from responsibility. Elizabeth, tears brimming, revealed how abandoned she felt, left alone while pregnant, and suspecting her husband was cheating. "It was never about you not being enough," Michael insisted. "I was weak. I lost sight of what mattered." Elizabeth inhaled unsteadily. "You said you loved me while lying next to another woman. You realize how deeply that stings." He nodded, silent tears escaping. Dr. Griffin asked them to practice open communication, discussing the wounds without immediate blame or retreat. The therapist suggested, "You both need to find a new normal if you plan to stay married. Rebuild trust by total transparency, passwords, whereabouts, daily check-ins. It's not easy, but it's a start." Though each session was painful, they left with a sliver of optimism. They were speaking honestly, if nothing else. Elizabeth began reasserting control over her life. She found a new purpose in philanthropic work, setting up a fund for single mothers, dealing with hospital expenses, ironically inspired by her own painful experience. She thrived in the idea of helping others. Meanwhile, Michael poured energy into regaining the board's confidence. He orchestrated a major partnership with John Maxwell's consulting firm, bridging old rifts. He publicly maintained a squeaky clean image, hoping to overshadow the rumor mill. Slowly, the gossip about Mr. X faded. Carla's name disappeared from the tabloids, courtesy of her expensive silence. Yet behind every forced smile at corporate gatherings or philanthropic events, Elizabeth felt pangs of betrayal. She watched couples at these galas, wondering if they carried secrets too. She realized how illusions can overshadow reality. Months passed. Andrew grew into a vibrant infant, giggling and cooing. Elizabeth and Michael's therapy sessions continued. Their arguments grew less frequent, replaced by cautious conversations, hugs that lingered a bit longer. Once in a while, Elizabeth found herself smiling at Michael's jokes, almost forgetting the heartbreak. But then she'd recall Carla's mocking flowers, that pink envelope, and the scrawled message, "I wonder if Michael's told you about us." One crisp autumn morning, Elizabeth opened a drawer in the nursery to find the old envelope from Carla. She had kept it, perhaps as a reminder not to be naive again. She touched the card's edges, remembering the day her world seemed to collapse. Michael entered, noticing the tension on her face. "You still have that?" he asked quietly. She nodded, swallowing a lump in her throat. "I don't know why I kept it. Maybe to remind myself how fragile trust is." He gently took her hands. "Liz, I'm not that man anymore. The affair was a terrible lapse in judgment. I'm trying every day to be worthy of you and Andrew." She studied his eyes, worn by regret, softened by fatherhood. "We still have a long way to go." He squeezed her hands. "I know, but if it's okay with you, I'd like to walk that path together." She hesitated, then gave a small nod, her eyes moist. They embraced, neither certain how the future would unfold, but both willing to try. Months stretched into a year. Slowly, Michael and Elizabeth learned to communicate better. The adrenaline rush of the scandal subsided, leaving them to face deeper issues: boundaries, honesty, emotional needs. Elizabeth took the lead on philanthropic ventures, building her identity outside of being Mrs. Thompson. Michael, for his part, rearranged his priorities: less time at the office, more time with family, transparency, with phone records and schedules, even letting Elizabeth drop by his office unannounced. Each day was a test of trust, but the memory of that hospital card lingered, a symbol of how quickly illusions can shatter. Over time, Elizabeth realized that healing doesn't mean forgetting or denying the pain. It means acknowledging it and choosing to move forward anyway. She never forgot Carla Donahue's smirk or the swirl of pink roses in the hospital room. Yet that scene, once so devastating, transformed into a crucible that forced Elizabeth to discover her own strength and forced Michael to confront the consequences of his betrayal. They would never be the same couple who danced under the stars in Lake Como, but maybe they could be something new, older, wiser, forged by fire. Thank you for joining us on this whirlwind journey through love, betrayal, and redemption. We witnessed how a single bouquet of flowers exposed hidden truths, tested a marriage, and forever changed two lives about to welcome a precious child into the world. In the face of heartbreak, Elizabeth found the inner strength to protect herself and her baby, while Michael confronted the fallout of his actions and fought to earn back her trust. Their path forward remains uncertain, but it's one they've chosen to walk together, shaped by the lessons of hard-won forgiveness. If you found yourself hooked on every twist and turn of this real-life drama, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring you more captivating stories that explore the deepest corners of the human heart. Stay tuned for more tales of passion, conflict, and the power of love.